Sven. So, are there, Monika, may I start with you? Are there any examples from the recent past in Germany or beyond Germany where the state has played, in your view, a significant, successful entrepreneurial role? Because when you read this question, the headline, is the state the better entrepreneur? Every entrepreneur kind of shies away from that question. So I was wondering, and I'm an entrepreneur myself, I was wondering, are there any examples out there? There must be.
So let me start by saying when a state should actually get into action. It's when we have a real challenge like the transition towards a decarbonized economy. In that situation, it's important that everything comes together because we need a coordinated move. So the car manufacturers have to supply electric vehicles, and at the same time you need charging stations, and the whole thing needs to move together. Otherwise, it won't happen. And in this case, a coordinating function of the state is extremely important to say, this is the way we are going, so let's everybody move together. Another situation where the state really has a...
But that's more of a general view now. Can you go a little bit more into detail?
Exactly. So another situation where the state is really challenged and important is when there is a crisis, like the crisis we had with the gas supplies that were cut off, and where the state then intervened and said, okay, let's see that we get gas from somewhere else, LNG, or let's build these ports so that they can actually be delivered to Germany and move fast to make this happen. So these are two situations where the state is really important, and I think in case of this supply of LNG, it was really successful because they cut a lot of red tape to make these happen, and it was successful.
The interesting thing is that it needed a crisis for doing things that have been maybe overdue, right?
That is definitely true.
What does it tell us? What does it tell us, Monika?
Yeah, actually, that's something that's now a lot debated also in research. Do we need a crisis? And yes, actually, sometimes this is what makes us understand that things cannot go on like that, and which gives us a momentum that everybody says, okay, now we need to change. I mean, think of Winston Churchill, who said, never waste a good crisis. I think we are in a situation, actually more crises may be coming up. We're sitting close to a location where this is now discussed a lot. Future crisis that may be looming. So this was a crisis that was very important to use to cut red tape, and we should do this much more.
Monika, and also Sven, maybe you call me naive, but is thinking about examples of the past where the state has played a significant and successful entrepreneurial role. What's always mentioned here in the Munich area is Airbus Industries, for example. I mean, that's not the recent past, that's some decades ago, but it reminds me a little bit of the Munich South. It reminds me a little bit of where your headquarters is located. So what's your perspective on that? Because I do think that was also an example for kind of a state-driven entrepreneurial success that's lasting since the last 50 years, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, when I was invited, and thank you for having me, I thought about the topic a lot, and I said, oh, hopefully I have enough good examples.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I'm coming from the entrepreneurial side, and there you are a little bit shy in asking a state to do this role. But I fully agree with what you said, and I also think Airbus, for me, is a great example. It's against a very, very successful competitor who, for the one or the other reason, also went into difficulties, but that doesn't cloud the success of Airbus. But also in my industry, semiconductor industry, there are good examples where we got and are still getting state support in order to have a, I would call it, more equal level playing field against others. I'm talking about EU Chips Act, I'm talking about IPCEI funding.
Sorry, IPCEI fund, EU chips, okay, but IPCEI funding, I think not everybody is familiar with that. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
That's a funding program, so common projects, common interests for European projects, where the European Union defines target areas where they want to help and when I want to support. And I give you an example from our situation, and especially in these days where we are all so negative and where we all say nobody is anymore investing into that continent. Infineon did make a decision 2 years ago to spend 5 billion euros on a new factory in Dresden to support our industrial and automotive customers here, for example. And here we are expecting 1 billion of funding from EU and German government, and we're getting a lot of support. So there are these examples. Another one is IMEC. Not everybody knows it. That's an institute in Belgium. They have, for example, invented the lithography for ASML, which is now in the heat of the sanction debate, just to give you one example.
Monika, from your perspective, from your rather academic perspective, do you see that companies from the private sector welcome state interventions as long as they get money in terms of subsidies?
Of course, when it comes to regulation, they always are opposed to the state intervening. When it comes to getting subsidies, they're very happy about it. So that's a dichotomy.
I'm really surprised.
That is, depending on what the situation is and who you talk to, sometimes they say, oh no, the state should not intervene, and then they turn around and then they open their hand.
Which is understandable, but Sven, from your perspective, if there is one thing where you wish for more or could wish for more state intervention in Europe for your company, for Infineon, what is it? And one where you wish for less intervention from the state?
The less is easy, so while I talk, I can think about the first one. less intervention, clearly, and I think I'm not telling you any news, is regulation.
Sorry?
Regulation. Here we need less.
Bureaucracy, regulation,
yes.
etc.
Shorter
so you
planning
also
periods.
also suffering from too much bureaucracy in Europe, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I give you 2 examples, and here I want to say the idea behind it is a good one, but then the deployment is lacking a lot of I stop here, so you know what I mean.
You don't need to stop.
So the one is the EU taxonomy. That's a good idea, but the way it has been done, it doesn't serve the purpose, to be polite. The other one is the CSRD directive. If I just on a roadshow in Middle East until yesterday, if I present 170 pages long a report about 180 non-financial KPIs, the investors say, why? And what is the purpose of that disclosure? Can't you tell me your 5 most important ones, and we have a real debate? So that's something where I definitely would expect less. More, even after having talked now for 2 minutes, I can't think of, to be honest.
Let me jump in then. I think what we need more is a vision. And a government that's talking about a vision where we want to be in 20 years from now. The current debate, I mean, you all know we have this election coming up in a week from now. The current debate is a lot about the past. How can we conserve things? How can we prevent deindustrialization? This is, if we talk about industry at all, then this is the debate we are having. It's not about how do we want to develop industry, not that the state should do it, but that it should discuss it, that how do we want to develop industry that we're still competitive in 20 years from now. We see, and we see this in our numbers, we show this in our report of the Council of Economic Experts, we are losing competitiveness, and we are losing it because of energy prices, yes, because of high labor costs, yes, and we can talk how we can lower these costs, yeah. But we are also losing it because we don't have the innovative products that are really competitive. Sorry for saying this here, but electric vehicles in China don't sell well at the moment, at least for some of the suppliers. And similar for mechanical engineering, the products are not competitive to the extent that they were with Chinese products. And so this is where we really need to move forward, and this is what the debate should be about. Not about the past, but about the future.
Okay, Monika, but if you're lacking that vision, which is totally understandable, what would be your vision if you could formulate it for the politicians out there? And same question then goes to Sven.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the vision is we need to increase productivity, and that definitely also means bringing down labor costs, yes. But we need to employ...
So bringing down labor costs, number
Yeah.
one. You're going to have a lot of friends out there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Number two?
Well, the question is then how to do it. Use
Right.
more automation, use more digitalization. And yes, the really good companies, they do that. But a lot of the companies, in
What are
particular,
the good
small,
examples? What are the best cases
small-
out there?
Well, I cannot tell you, but the small and medium-sized companies, a lot of them are not doing it, and the public administration definitely is not doing that. We all know that. But then the next thing, the next key challenge is artificial intelligence. And are we using it? The best companies are employing it, but are we using it to create products like autonomous driving? That should be the way to go forward. That will be, in an aging society, a real interesting product. I'm counting on having an autonomous vehicle in 20 years from now when I don't want to drive myself anymore. So this is what we should go forward to these really innovative products. And if we have these innovative products, then we can charge a price that covers even high labor costs.
Okay. What could be the role, because that's the title of our discussion, Sven, what could be the role of the state in order to make that happen? And if you think my question sounds a bit skeptical, you're right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking about. I mean, I fully agree with you that this should be the plan, and we see how dangerous, how difficult it is if a government goes in with, yes, we do that, then they withdraw, then consumers are not clear, they refrain from buying transactions. On the other hand, of course, we also have to face the reality that these politicians whom we want to do these mega visions, they are only elected for 4 years, and they don't know if they will be re-elected. So to give them a little bit of a relief, that is an issue. But on the other hand, I fully agree, and I would like to add 2 things. On the AI side, because a lot of the things we are seeing have to do also with the level of openness of a population towards new things. And we all know that there are some differences. I recently read an article summarizing how technology-friendly some countries are and others aren't, and I'm talking population. So it's not only the government, it's also either we don't explain it well enough and people don't understand it well enough.
So a communication.
That's a communication topic, but also that plays an important role. And before we talk about what we want to do with AI, we talk about what can go wrong with AI and regulate it. And that is, in my mind, a wrong sequence, which we definitely need to change. And I would like to add one thing on the energy. Maybe we are here a very special animal, but semiconductor industry has less an issue with energy prices. I mean, the lower they are, the better, of course. But for us, it's energy stability. Yeah. I can give you an example. We had a 20-minute energy breakdown in Dresden a couple of years ago. 20 minutes costed us 25 million euros.
That's a lot for 20
minutes. Because you need to scrap immediately the parts which are in your fab. That's not the case for every industry, but we need stability. We need a thoughtful process of backup solutions, storage solutions. We can't have these peaks. That doesn't work. So, and that's, on the other hand, also a challenge because everybody has different priorities, and how do prioritize that then on a macro level?
Can I challenge your view or your concern that the German population culturally isn't into new technology? I mean, we invented so much stuff. I mean, we invented the technologies of the last century, and people used it, embraced it. So sometimes I think this is just an excuse for not doing stuff that could be done.
Are you sure?
So think of the iPhone, the smartphone. Before it was invented, if you ask people, do you want to have something? Nobody would have understood why that is interesting. Now, is there anybody in the room who does not have a smartphone? Definitely not. And the whole population is now using it, even in Germany. There may be some weirdos who don't, but I think you can count them on your hand. So once you have the technology and you show that this is an advantage to use it, I think even Germans can be convinced that this is a good idea. But we don't offer it. So if the state, for instance, really had digital administration, people would be really happy. Of course, then the elderly population, you need to show them how to do online banking, for instance, yes, but they can learn it.
But nevertheless, I think there is a very strong concern in this country about new technology. Think of genetics, think of nuclear, the whole discussion about nuclear energy. I mean, just a couple of this week, beginning of this week, the opening of the German Börse, the German stock market, the new CEO, Stefan Leitner, also mentioned there are 33 billion not used basically on normal bank accounts and not part of the stock market. But that doesn't surprise me if we have a chancellor who is proud to say, I'm a Kunde der Stadtsparkasse and I don't have any kind of stock. Does it surprise you?
No, it doesn't. And unfortunately, it hasn't changed. There's a lack of education. I mean, I'm very happy if I see high schools or universities teaching that. So my son, for example, he came home and he asked me then a lot of interesting questions, how to invest, what is the difference between stocks and bonds, and what would you recommend? That was a good example. To your point, if you explain it well, if you feed them a little bit, then they may bite the bullet, so to say, positively. But there is no real understanding. And on the other hand, also to be self-critical. Also, some corporates have done a bad job. I mean, they overpromised, oversold. Then think about the big IPOs in Germany. People spent money on it, and they lost the money very quickly afterwards. That's also not helpful.
It made people skeptical, right?
Yeah, can I add to that?
Very good point.
I think you're raising a really important issue, the education, financial education. If you see how people invest their money, again, we have the numbers in our reports. 40% keep their money under their pillow. This is where they keep their money. It's cash, and it's in the saving bank. So they don't invest in shares. And if they do, then again, like you say, sometimes they follow this, wow, there's a great company. They invest all in one company, and then it fails, and then they go.
They quit forever.
They quit forever. So really teaching them that you have to invest diversified, international, that's really important. And this is actually what we suggested in our report. We said, okay, let's have this Kinderstartgeld, we said. So primary money that the government gives to kids between 6 and 18, 10 euros per month. They invest
basic income for kids.
Yeah, it's to be invested in a multinational fund like an ETF, and then in school class they show, okay, what's the outcome of yours? What's the outcome of yours? And they learn hands-on, because just teaching it, just telling them once in class, that's not enough. So really hands-on, and they will teach that parents as they go along.
By the way, just quickly, one sentence that applies also to employees. If you have employee stock option programs, if they own the company, that is a very different situation. If they look at my earnings call and they say, Sven, what did you do? The share price didn't go up. I want more money.
You have different discussions at the canteen, I guess.
I have very different discussions, and that's good. I want them.
Yeah, okay. Before we dive too deep into financial matters, let's drag the discussion a little bit back to the original topic of our conversation. Is the state about better entrepreneur? So let's make a note. Communication is a very important thing, to communicate the future, the beauty of the future, to communicate competitiveness, to communicate the beauty of the stock market, whatever. Second thing is education, what you just said. What are other boundary conditions, to phrase it like that, that are most important for making the state a successful entrepreneur, such as taxes, such as infrastructure, such as regulation measurements? What is the most effective of those parameters? Monika?
I think the really most important thing is education.
Okay, so in other words, it's not taxes, it's not regulation, and it's not
the education is the basis for our human capital. Because in the end, we don't have resources, we have people. And it's the people that will invent all the stuff that we need and will make this successful products. So I think education is the primary concern. And yes, of course, taxes, the lower the taxes, the nicer it is. But that still doesn't mean that you invest here, depending on whether you think this is growing or not growing. Perhaps you go somewhere else. I think, yes, you should make sure that the taxes are not too high, but at the same time provide the main ingredient, and that's education. And then provide also, of course, infrastructure so that things run smoothly. We have collapsing bridges, we have trains that don't run on time. All this, of course, is what you actually need the taxes for. But then if you have the taxes, spend it wisely, spend it on education and infrastructure.
Okay, let's challenge this view a little bit, Sven. If you have one free wish in the field of taxes, in the field of infrastructure, of regulation, or education that Infineon could benefit from, what would you choose? Is it education?
I'm sorry, no.
What is it?
For me, it would be infrastructure / digitalization. Because we generally, I do not disagree in principle, but we are still seen as a pretty attractive employer, so we get talents and we get people who are well educated from Munich-based universities and from others all around the world. I would see more potential in really improving on the digitalization. I mean, we are still in a situation that if I do a call and drive home, then probably I need to redial twice in my conference call because the line is cut. That's not acceptable. That then translates into an acceptance of underperformance, and this is a very dangerous thing going forward.
Mm. Monika, let's move a bit to the. We spoke a lot about Germany, to the EU perspective. What industrial policies, in your opinion, should Germany and especially the EU prioritize to support Sven? So that he has smoother investors' calls in the future, to prioritize to support high-tech manufacturing in Germany and the EU?
So I think the European Union really has the opportunity to invest in research and development of these high technologies. So artificial intelligence would be the thing where we need coordinated efforts to really scale this up, to also to have the market for scaling up and to have enough funds to scale up. Because we are competing with big techs from the US who have more money available than people here can write digits. It's just amazing. And so we really need to join forces. The same thing applies then to when we want to support particular sectors, particular industries, like chips. We need to have these factories in Europe to become less dependent on Asia. Think of Taiwan. Think of what might happen if China makes a move, and we don't have this supply anymore. Then we need to be self-sufficient. Not self-sufficient in the sense that there's no more delivery from anywhere, but we need to have more of it. And this should be coordinated, because if we subsidize just in one country, that means we're competing with the other countries and we raise prices. So
good point.
We should coordinate.
Sven, I mean, this is a key word for you. I mean, mentioning Taiwan to somebody from Infineon opens up a whole new dimension of discussion, right?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil your afternoon, but I mean, this is indeed, if we just look at the facts, this little island, with all respect to anybody from Taiwan here, potentially, is producing 60% of the worldwide semiconductors. And if you go into the leading edge for the iPhones, for AI, for example, it's 90%. 90%. So let's assume just a...
And has that already gone down a bit, like from 100 to, or from 95 to 90, or is it even rising? What's the kind of the perspective?
I mean, the Chinese, mainland Chinese, they are putting lots of money at work to go into the so-called lagging edge, so the more mature products. So they are increasing their share. We, for example, have created a joint venture with TSMC, Bosch, and NXP in Germany, where from 27 onwards we get then European supply, very important point. But to the point, if there would be a sea blockade in Taiwan for a couple of weeks, I'm not talking a war, we would not sell cars, we wouldn't have new iPhones, no smart phones, no smart hub, nothing would work anymore. And I think that is, the communication is one part, but being honest and explaining to the people the real issues, the real bottlenecks, and then saying, okay, we have 10, we can't solve it all, but let's take the top 5, and then let's put our efforts on defense, on whatever, and then execute accordingly. That would be the framework of the state, and then go withdraw again and let the entrepreneurs do the thing.
But Sven, very concrete, how does this knowledge, what could happen, influence Infineon's strategy when you talk to politics, when you're lobbying in Brussels? What's your main strategy? What's your target? Knowing that this could happen, because it could also open up market opportunities for Infineon as well. So how does it translate this, what you just said, this scenario, how does it translate into Infineon's future strategy?
I mean, it has a huge impact on the future manufacturing strategy. So in semiconductors, the power of economies of scale matter a lot. So if you have a fab somewhere, it's much better to build a second module to that fab than to build a new fab greenfield, because it's just not effective, economically effective. So if we would have that clarity on a European plan to build resilience in Europe, of course, that would be then positive for investments in Europe instead of going to Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Mexico, wherever.
And joint ventures is an option, I guess.
Joint venture, as I said, is an option, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry that we ran out of time, but it was a very interesting discussion, and I'm very thankful for your openness. And I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and I hope the intensity of the applause is kind of an indicator. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Danke sehr.